Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, Marvels versus DCs. I'm your host, DJ Woldridge. With me today is Sal. Hey, Sal.
Excelsior.
Excelsior, Sal. I am so excited to do this episode. I've wanted to do this episode with you for years now because we're talking Marvel versus DC, baby. We're going to get more Marvel versus DC crossover. We're going to go back to the 90s to my first Marvel DC crossover, which was DC versus Marvel. And we're going to, because it's very 90s, it is very of its time. And we're going to see what it would be like if we did it now. That's our discussion today. But before we get into that, I want to read some comics from our past video because we got some really great comments we did Legacy Characters was the last one we did.
Yes.
So this is some of the comments from that. Dwayne Little says, I don't know if you guys go back and read the comments. I'm doing it right now. This is my take on Tim Drake growing into his own character and some of the Young Justice. I think Tim should become Batwing, but have a slicker Batwing suit similar to, but not the same as Batman Beyond. I think Mon-El should let Connor take the name Valor, and Donna Troy should let Wonder Girl Cass be called Troya and age them up from to about 20 years old. That's my take. My only issues with that is Troya always felt like a placeholder. That's like when we started calling Tim Drake Drake. I'm like, that's just their name. It's just their name.
Yeah, no, that's awful. It was awful.
Isn't Drake a duck? I always try to figure out. He's like Drake, like a bird. That's stupid. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I know. I hated it. I was like, why did you do that?
And it's got its ugly brown costume. Nah, get out of here with that shit.
Yeah.
RS Rye says, this is wild. DJ called it. Newest Green Lantern show is about Jessica Cruz. They have just completely jumped Kyle in almost every adaptation. That being said, excited that My Adventures with Green Lantern. Bet it will be great. I'm also excited for My Adventures with Green Lantern. But yeah, of course they jumped Kyle. Of course they did.
Yeah, they're always going to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's one of those, even my producer brain is like, okay, we want to do a new Green Lantern. They're doing John and Hal over on the live action show. Who should our Green Lantern? It's like, well, it's going to be, if they're doing John and Hal, it's either going to be Jessica Cruz or it's going to be, what was the new one in Far Sector that they integrated? Joe, who's also great. I think my two favorite Green Lanterns are actually Kyle and Joe. But yeah, of course it'd be Jessica. Matt Garce XC9, and I think this is in reference to their favorite legacy characters. Jack Knight Starman, good. That's a good one. That's one that DC doesn't use a lot. Is that they can't use it without permission from the creator?
I don't know, man. But I will tell you that Jack Knight Starman appears in DC versus Marvel.
That's right, because he was
in the background.
Well, it's one of those things. There was a conversation on Blue Sky, Find Me Over Blue Sky Gang, where they were talking about 90s superhero trading cards and how there's such a snapshot of the era of like suddenly like you'll see like somebody was making a joke of like you'll see like Iron Man and Scarlet Witch side by side and here's Sleepwalker and it's like who the fuck, you and I know who Sleepwalker is, but like who the fuck is this guy?
It's Darkhawk, Sleepwalker, and
whoever
was a character I had in my head, but I couldn't remember his name.
Whoever we're trying to market at the time, like
Justice.
Yeah.
Oh, Rage.
Don't
forget Rage.
Oh,
he's an Avenger.
Yep.
What if Shazam, but black?
Yeah, and like a luchador thing going on, like with the mask and everything. Oh my god! But so that's what we're gonna get with DC versus Marvel. Joel J. Thompson says, "Crazy thought: Tim Drake as the Question."
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I like the idea overall of like separating Tim from the Bat Family since no one's doing anything with him. And it's like frustrating that he's relegated to what he is, which is like almost nothing. I like him as the Question. I think he'd be a good Question. It'd be really cool. It'd be a good evolution of his character. I dig that.
Yeah, I think, taking from the Bat Family, leaning into the detective angle would be interesting. Agree. Phyrexian Juggernaut. What about the worst legacy characters? What are some of the worst legacy characters?
It's tough, man. I mean, like, you know, I don't think that Gwen is the worst legacy character, but it didn't help. Like, because after Spider-Gwen's costume worked out and was a great movie character,
yeah.
comics, diminishing returns. didn't work out.
Oh, what's weird is, Miles has arguably the best Spider-Man movies right now. But every time I'm not, and this, to be fair, guys, I'm not really reading the Miles stuff. So if you're like, no, the run's great, that's awesome.
I hear it's great.
But every time I look in, it's like, now he's a vampire. Now he's a lightning sword. It's like, so do we not know what we're doing with Miles? Like,
yes, that's correct.
Yeah, like just do Spider-Man stuff. Like, why does he have a lightning sword? Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah. I liked, I have a lot of comics with Matrix Supergirl, but not exactly the best half measure, not resurrection legacy Supergirl.
Yeah, dude. So I got what sparked the legacy conversation. I got a collection of the first Kyle Rayner's first run, and he was part of the Titans, and Supergirl was also part of the Titans, which I actually like. I wish we did more of that. Like incorporate. The bummer is it's like the Titans at the time was like Arsenal and Impulse. It's like, no, I want to see Supergirl hang out with Nightwing more. Like there was a really good World's Finest where Supergirl and Dick Grayson go on a date, and it's one of those these two the point is like these characters don't work in that way. That's the point. And it's like,
I love it. Yeah,
but it's like we should bounce more of the Bat family off of more of the Super family in more interesting ways. Yes. But yeah, so Matrix Supergirl's a part of that, and it's like, yeah, man, this was weird. These were weird. And this is even before the whole Earth Angel arc thing and all that stuff. I'm like, this is some weird decisions were going on here. I also got to say, I don't know, worst is tough because I think what would make the worst legacy character is that you wouldn't remember them. And so I don't remember them. But so these characters aren't the worst, but I just think there's too many Green Lanterns, man. You started mentioning Simon Baz. There's too many of them. We need to cut, especially since we introduced other lanterns. Let Guy be a Red Lantern. Or like, I have a lot of nostalgia. McFarlane likes to do these platinums where it's like a recoloration. They did a Guy Gardner figure, and then there's a recoloration that has him when he had the Sinestro ring. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get that.
That's awesome, actually.
I'm going to get that. Like, have them have other... We're like lousy with Earthbound Green Lanterns. Give them other rings, man. Like, get rid of some of these guys.
I completely agree. I know who's one of the worst legacy characters.
Yeah.
Nick Fury
Jr. That's right. You mentioned that in this show. Let me throw this one. What about when we tried to do, what was it? Did we just call him Fate? When we turned Dr. Fate into this like 90s edgelord, like he's got a dagger. Oh, that man. And also here to that point too, we need to cut bait on some of the Batman family, like Signal. Yep. Like I think that's here's my pitch, Sal. I think here's what we could do if we did a Batman reboot. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but what are the chances I'm going to be writing a Batman comic anytime soon? What they could do is you introduce Dick Grayson Robin. And then once he retires, he becomes Nightwing. A bunch of other street kids band together to become the Robin. We do this. We Are Robin. There was that run, We Are Robin. But just do it earlier. And so it's like, in that way, Batman's not recruiting young people. It's a group of young people that are like, no, we have a responsibility to protect these are our streets. We have a we can't just trust Batman to do it. We should do it ourselves. And that can be Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown, Duke, you know what I mean? Like they are the Robins. They are the Robins together. They have their own little gang of Robins, and they're loosely, sometimes Batman will work with them, but most of the time he's like, you kids, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I feel like if that's the case, make them spoilers.
Oh yeah, dude, that's actually a pretty good group name too. Like, yeah. I like that. Anyway, let us know in the comments who you think some of the worst legacy characters are, because Sal and I are clearly forgetting. But I want to get into the main thing today, which is there's news. This is coming from CBR and Superhero Hype. DC Editor-in-Chief Mary Javins and Marvel Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski have revealed that the two companies will be doing two intercompany crossovers later this year, as of 2025, in the form of two one-shots, DC Marvel and Marvel DC. The new crossovers were announced at Comics Pro 2025 at a panel featuring both of them. And we just had, I don't know about you, Sal, but they were pricey, but I got both omnibuses of the crossovers.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
no, I got them. Yeah,
I even got
pricey, but that was worth getting.
I got the Jim Lee covers. I got them. I was like, I gotta, put that on my shelf, please and thank you. So Sal, one of my earliest comic memories, we've talked a little bit about this, is, I came up I was born in the 80s, but I was able to buy comics with my allowance in the 90s. And so earliest memories are Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, Ben Reilly as Scarlet Spider, then Spider-Man. That's why I love this shit. It's all nostalgia, baby. But then the big one, and I think I remember seeing it at a grocery store. It was DC Marvel, and my little kid brain fucking melted. It was like, oh my God, I didn't even think this was possible. This is...
Yeah, I know.
Closest I've had to that experience ever in my life was when I was watching, what was The Fablemans? And then David Lynch comes in at the end. And my brain was like, wait, David Lynch and Steven Spielberg were in a room together? Like, is that possible?
A thing I can have more of? Yeah.
This scene's great. I hope somebody turned the camera around and like had them talking, like interacting.
Right. Yeah, because I want to see the two of them like work together, or talk to each other just for like half an hour.
Because those are two worlds that I just don't imagine. What did they talk about? Right? So similarly, back in my kid, I'm like, how would Batman and Captain America and Superman and the Hulk? I'm like, oh my God. But I think we can admit now. So for people that don't know, people that didn't grow up in the 90s, Marvel and DC had been doing this for a while, going all the way back to, I think, late 60s, early 70s with Superman, Spider-Man.
Yeah, the 70s.
Was it 70s? Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a original copy of that crossover. I own it.
Same.
And again, like Sal and I just mentioned, we got the omnibus. I will say some of those stories are a little hard to get through as a modern reader. It's like a lot of exposition going on.
Yeah, some of them aren't great.
Yeah.
But or they had a lot of work to go, like, it's funny talking to pros about it, because I'm one of those people who never lets it go, and I've asked a lot of like elder statesmen of comics, and some of the like the more new guard who are also bigger nerds than we are about this kind of thing.
Yeah,
have like delved into it, because I was like, I love the spirit of collaboration and all that stuff, and it's like, they were like scrounging and arguing and trying to figure out, like, they were posturing when they first did it.
Yeah,
like the infamous or famous Superman Spider-Man crossover cover is famous not because it's so great, but because they were able to pull it off with the requirements they had, just to get them both the same proportions.
Yep.
But still have a dynamic cover. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, they had to talk, like, they were like, how can we get, and Spider-Man can't be fully obscured,
Yeah.
And it's funny because only Marvel has ever exploited that cover further. Like when they introduced Alpha, they did that cover.
Yeah.
Alex Ross did that cover. There's a ton of different like Marvel covers with Spider-Man on them and replacing Superman with anybody else.
Yeah.
Like,
It's funny.
DC's never done it again.
And it's funny how we do that, man, because it's the same thing with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that, Mickey Mouse, Steven Spielberg was able to orchestrate that, where Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, but they had to be on the same screen the same amount of time.
Daffy and Donald. They were like, they're okay, put them in the same scene, playing the same instrument at the same time, and then have them both leave the stage at the exact
It's basically like what I imagine the contracts for the Fast and Furious movies are, where it's how many punches with who and who wins the fights and all that stuff. But yeah, so all the way up, and we had it all the way through the 90s. They did a series of crossovers, and this all culminated into DC versus Marvel. There's 4 issues. Each one's flipped. So it was DC versus Marvel, Marvel versus DC.
Yep.
And they paired off 11 characters to fight. I have in my notes, 6 were determined by the creative team, 5 were reader vote. And we're going to go through them, but as we go through them, you're going to see, I did a whole episode on this with Roxy, but you're going to see that like some of this stuff is super nice. It was what was going on in the 90s. We weren't doing like the classic. We weren't going back to basics with this. Like, no, what are we doing in the 90s? This is those versions of those. So it's Ben Reilly Spider-Man fighting Connor Kent Superboy, something you wouldn't even take up anybody's, it wouldn't be even a consideration if you were doing it now.
Yes.
And I wanted to sit down and I wanted to do this with Sal. Sal, we got the call.
Yeah.
We got the call from the DC editor. We got Mary Javins and CB Sapolsky have called us, and they're like, all right, we're doing Marvel versus DC again. Same rules, 11 matchups, but we want to modernize it. So you and I are going to be taking point on this. And here's some of the criteria. Villains are allowed, teams are allowed. We didn't do that the last time, where Team A versus Team B. I'm thinking, like, if we wanted to get Fantastic Four, why pick a character? You could just do the Fantastic Four.
Exactly.
That's allowed, but something we have to consider when we're doing this, Al, is power levels of the characters. Like, is it, like I think we can all agree if we're talking about the other criteria, so the other criteria are stature within the universe.
Yep.
And then marketability, does the character have the juice to sell move comics? So I think with those criteria, we think, well, marketability and stature, Superman and Captain America should fight. But then you get to power level and you're like, well, that's not going to happen.
But the thing is, if they were actually to do like the first, because the plan right now is 2 Marvel DC books, one from Marvel, one from DC, but they're called DC Marvel, Marvel DC.
Mm-hmm.
These are not like, oh, we're going to do a Batman, Daredevil, and you know what I mean? Like,
it's the whole universe.
Whole universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
And probably they're not going to be connected, if I had to assume.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if they were going to launch the first crossover book or story, it would probably be Superman Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read it, it doesn't really work out at all.
Oh yeah, because they have to like depower Superman. I think they power up Spider-Man and depower Superman a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's like the fun of it is seeing the fact that like, oh my God, these 2 both work at newspapers, and oh my God, they both are dating sassy, like, women of the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh look, like 2 of the smartest Spider-Man of their supervillains, the smartest ones, Lex Luthor and Dr. Octopus. Like, that's the fun. But also they fight, and Spider-Man would die. Yeah,
instantly. Well, it's the same thing. Because what we're specifically doing here is we are rebooting this fight. We're pairing off characters to fight. And so we're not going to be doing Superman Spider. You know what I mean? That's the powers.
Something new.
We got to
do that again.
Yeah, we can't. And it's one of those like. So we're going to go through each of the ones that we did them. We're going to see what we're keeping, what we're losing. But like to your point, like Storm versus Wonder Woman. You're like, well, Wonder Woman. And then you're like, well, Storm is a goddess. But the way they do it in the comic is like, she just hit Wonder Woman with lightning. So now Wonder Woman lost. Like, that's not, get out of here. That's not how. So yeah, we're going to specifically go through the lineup that was in the 90s. We're going to see who we're keeping, who we're losing, see what our lineup of 11 fighters is going to be, 11 matchups is going to be. Before we do that, if you're like, I don't know, guys, I'm kind of tired of this whole superhero fight stuff. Please stick around, but also go to dangerboycomic.com. If you're like, man, I really want to see what superheroes, somebody try and push superheroes in the 21st century. I want to see something new with the superhero genre, try and push in new directions. That's what me and my co-creators are trying to do over at Dangerboy and the Antagonists. As of this recording, there's a few days left. If you're watching this live, if you're watching when it goes up, I think there's only days left to get it. As of this recording, we are 120% funded. We are working on our second stretch goal. So help us get to that second stretch goal. We're going to be adding new pages to the comic. We've already added these exclusive stickers that will be a part of every physical reward tier. Every stretch goal we get just makes the product you get better. So every new backer helps us get to that goal of making the final product better. Because that's one of the things with this Kickstarter. It's an indie book. It's a 44-page book, so it's more than double the size of your average comic book. And I really want to make this experience, because it's a little. You're not just going to the comic shop and picking stuff off the stand. You have to go to the Kickstarter. You're helping support indie comics. I want to make the product as great as all our backers are. So the support and the feedback has been so great, and I'm telling you guys, I'm seeing. Sean's sending me new pages every day. You're not going to want to miss out on this book. Go to dangerboycomic.com. You can also get some of my previous comics like Hellbound and Chaos Theory. A lot of cool stuff. If you're a patron, you get some extra bonus rewards as well. So dangerboycomic.com, check it out. Back the comic, please and thank you. So now let's go through this lineup, see who we're matching up in 2025. If we were to do DC versus Marvel, the 90s crossover in 2025, who are we matching up? And we're starting off with, in the 90s, it was Aquaman versus Namor. I don't know about you, Sal. I wiped this. Who cares? Aquaman, just cut it out. This gives us 2 slots right off the bat that we can fill. I do have a suggestion for characters that were not on anybody's radar then that are huge now.
Totally.
I think Harley Quinn versus Deadpool.
Yeah. Harley Quinn versus Deadpool is like a no-brainer. That sells. Also, if you're going to amalgam them, that'd be great. Easy.
Because I think especially if I'm looking at the runtime now, that's going to be another we're going to do we're probably going to do an amalgam episode. That's going to be part 2 of this one. So stay tuned for that.
Definitely.
And here's the other thing I should mention. I had a lot of fun putting this together. I am going to do what they did. So there's going to be the audience, our listeners are going to be able to vote on who. Sal and I are going to pick 5 of them. What was let me see what was the numbers? Creative team determined 6. Sal and I are going to determine 6 of them. You guys are going to get to vote 5 of them over at patreon.com/onlystupid-answers. It'll be a public post. Even if you're not a patron, you get to vote on it. Next time Sal and I get back together, we'll see who wins in 2025. Which is much easier to do. Back in the day, you had to like cut off a thing and mail it in. This time, you just have to go to patreon.com/onlystupid-answers and vote. Okay, so we axed Aquaman Namor, replace him with Harley Quinn and Deadpool. Next up was Elektra versus Catwoman. Yeah, this is another one.
It's another one we axe.
We axe. All right, we're gonna axe it. Sorry, gang.
By the way, assume. I mean, like a Namor Aquaman book also wouldn't sell. I also say no. But an Elektra Catwoman book, I would like to see that.
Well, it's one of those things. Catwoman, I think, still makes sense. She still has her own book on the stands. Elektra being there feels very much an artifact of the '90s. I guess Elektra has researchers now because she's Daredevil, which is again like. She's Elektra. She doesn't. I don't need 2 Daredevils running around.
I know. She's not really running around much. But I will also mention this fact. Elektra, I think they launched a new book when that came out. So like Marvel was 100% using the DC Marvel crossover as a way to promote the new books that were coming out at that time.
And Elektra's great. Elektra's a great character. And I get the pairing with, I think even Elektra won that fight because it was the 90s or whatever.
She did.
Yeah, no. So we're going to axe it. Do we have an immediate replacement or do we want to hold on that and revisit it once we see who else we slot in? People watching live, if you want to throw out some suggestions, I got some stuff.
I did have one. I did have a Marvel DC slot that would be fun to see the fight. It would scratch a few itches, but still wouldn't have my issue. Miles versus Nightwing.
Miles versus Nightwing. I like that. Because I was going to suggest maybe Miles versus Blue Beetle, but Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle. But maybe that's too Miles versus Nightwing. I'm going to put that down because I want to throw out another one for you. That's a wild card. That I feel like you're going to ixnay, but I wanted to throw it out there. I'm going to put Miles versus Nightwing. We'll circle back to fill this slot. Fantastic Four versus the Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
No, that's a little weird. Because it's definitely when you're going to our criteria. Power levels. I think there's a pretty good matchup there. Stature,
I love it. Robot Man in the Thing.
That's the reason, man. It's the Robot Man in the Thing. That's why it worked up. I just feel like it's weird to pull the Thing. I guess it makes sense. He's the most famous one.
Like Coulter versus Richards is a very interesting matchup. I mean, the thing you do is Doom Patrol X-Men because Doom Patrol is X-Men.
Yeah.
But I kind of love the idea of the Fantastic Four fighting,
and they get their powers from accidents. It's just the one part that doesn't match up is marketability. Fantastic Four is a bit more marketable than Doom Patrol is. They had a TV show. All right.
Oh yeah, no, Doom Patrol is more. It's never been more aware. Like people have never been more aware of Doom Patrol than now.
Yeah. So we'll just leave that. Throughout a few options, we're going to see where other stuff lands to see who we're going to fill that with. Next up is Flash versus Quicksilver. I'm axing Quicksilver.
You gotta axe Quicksilver. There's nothing there. Quicksilver there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
There's no fun.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to throw out to you, Sal. I want to see what you think about it. Because here's the other thing we're just going to axe. I know ahead of time. Ben Reilly versus Connor Kent. That's not happening.
That ain't happening. Connor's not even in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love Connor, but it's not happening.
Oh, especially not Ben. He's fucking, what is he right now? What stupid name did they give him? Chasm. Get the fuck out of here. No. Miss me with that shit.
Like Chasm versus Electric Blue John Kent. Like, no, forget it.
No. We're not doing that. I want to suggest power, and I think the power level is going to be an issue with a lot of DC because just generally DC characters are more powerful than Marvel characters.
Absolutely.
I want to suggest Flash versus Spider-Man versus Peter Parker Spider-Man. Here's why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're both are gateways into the multiverse generally with both brands. Both of them are relative. Spider-Man is going to demolish anybody's paired up against. He's Spider-Man. And you're like, Flash is speed. I get you. But Spider-Man does have spider sense. It is a stretch. But there have been weirder matchups.
Spider-Man has a villain called Speed Demon.
See?
Who is a Flash. And we've seen Spider-Man fight the Flash more or less before.
Yeah.
Speed isn't as fast as the Flash, but we've seen like Spider Sense versus Speed. And it's like, that's a cool matchup. Plus, you have webbing issue where it's like, oh, I just webbed his feet or I webbed where he's going to run. You know, like you have a way for Spider-Man to hold his own. I think Spider-Man could fight Flash more handily than Superman. So yes, I think that's more fun.
All right. So we're
going to see that.
Okay. So we're going to Flash versus Spider-Man. That's what we're going to say for right now. Next one. Ooh, this is another one I think you just axed. Robin versus Jubilee.
There's no way.
No
way.
No.
I don't care. I don't want to. And no Robin. Like Damian. No. Just that's gone.
That's gone. I think we can either slot in. We already have a Miles versus Nightwing. We have we have a few options there that we could play with. Oh, we'll come back to that one. So we have 2 slots right now that are unoccupied.
We have two Batman Captain America crossover fights.
Yeah.
Right. We have DC versus Marvel, Batman versus Captain America. We have JLA Avengers, Batman versus Captain America. We have the Batman Captain America John Byrne crossover. Enough with the Batman Captain Americas. It's got to be Iron Man.
Okay, so that's what I was going to want. Okay, so we're jumping ahead to the.
I'm sorry,
no. My thought was I like because I agree with you. I also don't know why we keep comparing Batman and Captain America. They don't. Their brands don't match up. They're not the same. They don't serve the same function in the universe.
Partners that died because of them, but like, and they're both regular people, kinda.
Yeah. Okay. So is it Batman Iron Man? Because I agree with that. But it just they're both billionaires. They're both tech based. But I didn't want to throw out there because I don't know where else we fit him in. Is it Batman Iron Man or is it Batman Black Panther?
Yeah. That's tough. I don't know. I mean, honestly, the more fun fight is Batman Iron Man because then you get a bat suit. Like you get a bat iron suit.
All right. We're gonna do Batman, especially Iron Man's Iron Man. Iron Man's like and you think about where the brands are at right now, at least as far as like movies. Batman and Iron Man are the 2 big ones. They're the 2 big ones. Okay, I totally agree with that. I do want to. Here's what I'm going to throw in our wild card pile because you just mentioned it. Do we want Winter Soldier versus Red Hood?
Yes, it has to be done. That's one of those things where it's like it didn't exist before. Neither of those characters were alive when this crossover happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to do Red Hood, Winter Soldier. It's a fan thing. Would it sell? I don't think it would sell, but I think it would show the audience that you're listening.
Okay. All right. So I put in Winter Soldier, Red Hood as one of our slots. Next up is Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern, and that is the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern.
Of course.
I do think we keep a Green Lantern. It'd probably be Hal, maybe John, especially with his stock is going to be on the rise soon with the show.
Big time.
But we haven't really done anything. I mean, to the degree that we're getting Silver Surfer in a Fantastic Four movie, and it's not even the Norrin Rad Silver Surfer. Like we haven't really been doing anything with Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
So
no, I think we can nix it, honestly.
The whole thing. So is Green Lantern not fight? Green Lantern's not a part of this.
You could use Green Lantern. We could hang on to him for a minute, but I think there's bigger matchups that you could get away with.
Okay, we're gonna hold on to Green Lantern because I also thought
put a pin in it.
Maybe Green Lantern Core, like our human Green Lanterns versus Guardians versus Nova versus I couldn't figure out who. We'll put a pin into that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one that I think we keep part of. Thor versus Captain Marvel Shazam. We're getting rid of Captain Marvel Shazam.
That's gotta go.
Thor. Thor, we're keeping.
Makes sense. Yeah, Thor. You got to do a big Thor fight. That's gonna be fun.
So,
I think I know exactly where you got to put that, and I think we've already seen it, but I think it would be great. But keep it going.
Well, I'm going to ask you. So my thoughts are we pitting Thor against Superman or Wonder Woman?
Now we did have a little bit of a Thor Wonder Woman situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where she gets the hammer and she like loses all her clothes.
Yeah, her clothes go away.
Yeah.
But it results in one of the best moments in the crossover where they're having their big fight, like with everybody.
Yeah.
And Thor loses Mjolnir and Wonder Woman goes, "Here."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, thanks." Who are you?
Yeah.
They put that in a crossover. They put that crossover in an actual Thor comic. Like they work that in.
Yeah.
Where there's a little like menagerie of characters who can lift Mjolnir, and it's just a small, and Wonder Woman is silhouetted, where it's like Wonder Woman technically can lift Mjolnir. That would be cool to see. And we've also seen Superman versus Thor in JLA Avengers, one of arguably the best DC Marvel crossover of all time.
Yeah.
So I think, you've done it already. You've done everything you can with it, with a Thor versus Superman. Wonder Woman versus Thor would be cool to see, and it'd be fun to go for it. And it would give Wonder Woman something to do, because otherwise you're going to relegate her to like fighting She-Hulk or something, which is not the same level of power.
Well, I think you answering that question answered who I think. Well, here we go. We're actually going. So this is where now we're entering into where these were the top 5 reader votes. So Superman versus Hulk, and of course this was in the 90s. So this was mullet Superman versus smart Hulk.
Yes.
For me, this always confused me as a kid because I think the only thing that compares them is strength. Yep. Like that's the only thing they have in common. So if we're pairing Thor versus Wonder Woman, do we pair Superman with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel?
Wow.
Because I was thinking Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel is either fighting Wonder Woman or she's fighting Superman.
I mean,
and she wasn't even on the radar. I mean, she might have shown up in a group shot in one of those crossovers, but she's
in JLA Avengers as binary, like
oh my God.
Warbird. Like, it's not even.
Yeah, her stock has risen way higher since then.
Oh yeah, no, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers could fight. I mean, you could have her fight Supergirl.
Well, I mean, I was gonna ask, is Supergirl a big enough name? And I'm like, well, she is getting a movie. She is getting a movie. But then who?
I mean, honestly, for me, the thing that I would do for fun, the thing that I'd want to see, is Carol versus Power Girl.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Because they're both Danvers, and they
and
they're both like kind of hotheads with short hair. Like, I think that'd be fun. I don't think it would sell.
Yeah.
So I think you got to go with Supergirl. Or I mean, your idea wasn't bad either. So you can't go wrong.
Who do we pair Superman with? Superman's obviously going to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Who's he? Who are we pairing him up with?
What you could do? Who were we thinking for Superman again? The Marvel character. It was like,
you could do. You could do something like Sentry, but that feels like at that point it's like you could just have him fight Hyperion. It's because he's just a Superman pastiche.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Yeah, that's a tough one.
We can revisit it. We can put a pin in it. Okay, so we've already got Batman versus Iron Man. Here's another tricky one.
Yeah,
Wolverine versus Lobo.
Oh yeah, you got to cut Lobo.
You cut Lobo, but Wolverine's staying. But it's one of those. Who is Wolverine? Who are we pairing with?
Right,
Wolverine.
Yeah, because I would initially think like Winter Soldier or something, but I think you got to keep it Red Hood versus Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at like apples to apples, that's a tough one.
I don't think there is an apple. That's the tricky part.
There isn't really an apple for Wolverine.
The one that occurred to me, and I don't think it's one of those like. If the problem is, if this is another thing, like whoever you pair Superman with, or Spider-Man with, or Batman with, except Batman and Iron Man, that's a pretty, as far as like cultural perception, that's pretty even as far as who, especially if they're voting, who's going to vote. Wolverine's well, whoever you pair with Wolverine's going to win. Yes. So as far as like, if we're going back to our criteria of marketability, this isn't on the same level, but I thought skill level, Midnighter.
Oh, Midnighter would be cool. That'd be a cool fight. It would not sell.
Yeah.
Or like Wolverine's doing the heavy lifting. There's like, that is a Marvel event. Yeah. Or Marvel is doing all the help. DC is getting a favor.
Yeah. Because it was either obviously Wolverine came before the 90s, but his big push was in the 90s. So, and DC's got it. They've got it Midnighter, and they got Grifter now, and I like Grifter a lot. But I just feel like they're pushing Midnighter more. The Authority movie's coming out soon.
Midnighter will be the smart money. The other, a bigger DC character that is still not big enough to sell their own book is Martian Manhunter.
Well, okay, so in the chat we had, I think it was Grace, and let me see. Oh. No, it was King of New York says Hulk versus Martian Manhunter. Yeah. And I get it, they're both green. That's one of those like cool Martian Manhunter's winning that fight.
For this, that would be like oh my God, I didn't see this coming. Like, you told me this was going to be a superhero versus superhero fight.
Yeah.
But you pull out Doomsday.
Versus Hulk?
Yeah.
Whoa. Just like, on sheer Hulk versus Doomsday.
Just you throw Doomsday at him.
Yeah.
John suggested it in Doomsday Clock, but like, it would just be such a cool it would just be so cool.
Yeah. Oh, that could be another one. That's the other thing is, I remember when that crossover, there was your marquee fights, and then there was like, hey, by the way, this thing's going on over here. Isn't that cool? Here's
the Thanos Darkseid fight was like the whole like a running undercurrent.
Dude, that's the thing. So again, part of our rules that they didn't do before was all heroes. Thanos and Darkseid could be one of these slots.
Easily.
It could be one of these slots. Okay, last one. Wait, we just paired off. We paired off Thor versus. Okay, so then we have Storm versus Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman went over to fight Thor. Are we just is this just another slot that we get, or is there somebody to pair with Storm that I'm not?
Oh,
and does Storm even get? I mean, she's got her own book now. Like it's not unheard of that Storm would get.
Maybe Black Canary. She's pretty popular nowadays.
I wonder if there's like an.
You know who you could pit Storm against, and it'd be kind of a fun fight? A Green Lantern.
Yeah. Would you do John, or I would assume like John or Joe, maybe?
Yeah, John or Joe. I mean, like, I'd make it John. Just make it like, because it's like, why does Storm have to fight a guy, or why does Storm have to fight a woman?
Yeah. John Stewart. Okay, so here's what we have so far. Bump. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I should have numbered these. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have three. We have 3 slots that are open, and nobody's fighting Superman yet.
Right.
So here's what we have: Harley Quinn versus Deadpool, Winter Soldier versus Red Hood, Flash versus Spider-Man, Thor versus Wonder Woman, Batman versus Iron Man, Wolverine versus Midnighter, Storm versus Green Lantern John Stewart.
Yeah. None of these are blowing, steam up our skirts here. Like, this is not like these are not, like barnstormers. These are just kind of like, they're cool and they would be like universally accepted. I think you got to go teams.
You got to go teams. So before as we pause here, Grayson did say Storm versus Aquaman or Static. I like the Static because they're both lightning, but Storm's winning that fight. Static's great. Storm's winning that fight. And also in the Discord we have Jake Hefner. See if they have any suggestions. Jake says I'd be interested in Daredevil square off with Batman or Nightwing, or Lex Luthor fight Norman Osborn. Because again, we haven't done really any villain stuff. Because I also thought like you could do like Lex Luthor versus Doctor Doom or something. That could be interesting.
Yeah, Doom versus Luthor would be friggin' cool. Because then you have Green Goblin against. Oh yeah, no. Because you need Osborn. He's such a fun character, and it'd be really fun to see him fit it. Oh, Osborn versus Joker.
Osborn versus Joker. Yeah. Leonard Kim says, "Do you think?" Whatever. These are questions. We'll get to the questions in a minute. He says also, give me Wanda versus Zatanna or Doctor Strange versus Doctor Fate. And Doctor Strange is a bigger deal now, but is it Doctor Strange versus Doctor Fate or is it Doctor Strange versus Constantine?
It's Constantine. Constantine is the more fun, although the one that sells. Constantine versus Doctor Strange is fun, but you'll still get Constantine if you have it be Doctor Strange versus Zatanna.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually makes more sense to me because I know we've tried to like fit Constantine in the main DCU, but he's a Vertigo. It'd be like having Morpheus in this fight. It's like, I mean, what are we doing?
Morpheus. I don't think so.
Yeah, because
Morpheus versus Sleepwalker. Like,
you know what I was just thinking was because I guess green monster people like Swamp Thing versus Hulk, and then I was like, wait a second, what if Swamp Thing versus Storm?
I like that.
Elemental god people.
Yeah. That'd be fun. I mean, but you got to do Swamp Thing versus Man Thing.
Yeah, but again, nobody's buying that book.
No one's buying that book.
Okay, okay. So here's some of the ones we got. Lex Luthor. We said Lex Luthor versus Doom, and then Osborn versus Joker. What a nightmare that would be. We're just gonna wow. And then,
by the way, just as a quick aside, while you're collating, I was just thinking about like, people think basically that Green Goblin is Marvel's Joker.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong, but I think Bullseye is more the Joker. Where it's like a person that could be killed with conventional bullets, but is like borderline magic unstoppable, who also just does it for the lulz.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I think like, because there's a moment that stuck out with me forever from DC Marvel, which is Bullseye in the Batcave.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it's so great.
Yeah.
Where Bullseye's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what happened, but I found a kid, so I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Batman is like, if you touch that kid,
Yeah.
you're going to enter a world of pain.
Yeah.
And Batman he clocks out Bullseye, and Bullseye says, you hit even harder than Daredevil. And I'm like, this is the Daredevil Batman crossover I want.
Yes, absolutely.
Is Daredevil dealing with Joker and Batman dealing with Bullseye. That is a cool freaking matchup.
That's great. Because at the time, I know there's that Batman Spider-Man crossover where it's like
So
Joker.
good, I love it.
It's good, but it's like Joker and Carnage. And it's like, yeah, but like, because the 90s.
That was such a smart impulse for them. That was so smart because DeMatteis wrote it. It wasn't derivative.
Yeah.
Carnage is a Joker fan.
Yeah.
Joker think Carnage sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's gold.
Yep. Okay, so we've got 3 slots, and we need to figure out who's Superman's fighting.
Yeah.
And here's the wild cards we've thrown out there: Fantastic Four versus Doom Patrol, Miles versus Nightwing, Hulk versus Doomsday, Doctor Strange versus Zatanna. I know King of New York is a big fan of Wanda versus Zatanna.
It makes sense, but also like we've seen it in JLA Avengers.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Lex Luthor versus Doctor Doom, Osborn versus Joker, Darkseid versus Thanos. I'm also going to throw in Bullseye versus Joker, except again, like when you're talking like, as far as like cultural consciousness, Bullseye ain't quite there. It's definitely not Joker. Sell. Yeah. So we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it Green Goblin versus Joker.
Goblin Joker is a book that would sell on its own.
Okay, so do we want any of these? Do we feel confident in turning our keys on any of these filling one of our 3 slots? Oh, we also had Supergirl versus Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Although I'm going to point out again, we still don't have anybody fighting Superman.
Yeah. No, we got a pin on that. Yeah. That's like if everything sells, that's wave 2.
Yeah. I
think I've got our Superman fight.
Okay, who's our Superman fight?
The Phoenix.
The Phoenix? I mean, it's powerful, but they don't mean the same thing. Oh, and we also don't have anybody fighting Captain America.
Oh yeah. We'll get that. That's gonna be easier.
Phoenix is super powerful. They don't carry the same. Because here's what I want to say. I want to say because they represent the same thing in the universe. I want to say Captain America, Superman, but just the hand wringing to figure out how that fight even works.
I mean, at the same time, I love the idea of Cap being like we've seen it in JLA Avengers where he's just like, Superman, huh? Yeah, I fought a couple of Supermen in my time.
Yeah. You could also do the thing what they did in DC versus Marvel, where Wonder Woman's coming in with Thor's hammer and she's like, you know what, this isn't fair. And so she ditches it, where Superman's like, well, this fight isn't fair, so I'm going to wear a necklace of kryptonite or something. You know what I mean? Like, and then Cap's like, well, that's not fair, so I'm going to do without my shield. And then Superman's like, well, that's not fair, so I'm going to...
Yeah, no, and then they just outfare each other until they fall apart. I mean, just give Cap a ring. Just give Cap a kryptonite ring.
Yeah. Wait, are we saying Superman versus Cap? Are we committing to that? Are we turning our keys on
I would
Superman?
read that. That's a book.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, that's the book. I mean, like, it's the one that makes the most sense.
I mean, there's a reason in Amalgam we paired them with the super soldiers, Captain America and Superman together. Okay. All right. Okay. So now we have 3 slots. And here's some of the ones we've thrown out there. King of New York says, what about an entire team versus Superman? Maybe Fantastic Four versus Superman.
I was trying to think of that. Like, I was actually thinking like a whole team versus Superman, like the X-Men versus Superman, which would be freaking cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four versus Superman would also be really awesome. So yeah, I mean, like I'd be cool with that, but then it doesn't give Cap much to do.
Yeah. Or Grayson says, or give him a lantern ring, which is pretty wild.
Cap with a lantern. Cap fighting Superman initially, and then getting the lantern ring.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here's what I'm going to throw at you. Let's do Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers versus Green Lantern. Let's say John or whatever, and let's have Storm versus Swamp Thing, because the 2 elemental power god is whatever. All right. Captain Marvel versus GL. Pick one. Pick one of them. It'd probably be John.
Whichever one you want to. Whichever one they want to push at the time.
Swamp Thing. That's wild. That's a wild matchup. Okay, so we got 2 slots.
Mm-hmm.
And here's our wild cards. We need to pick 2 of them. Fantastic Four versus Doom Patrol, Miles versus Nightwing, My that would probably move something. That gives us 2 Batman sidekicks, but I think that's probably fine. Batman, half the DC books are Batman books.
Yep.
Hulk versus Doomsday, Doctor Strange versus Zatanna, Lex Luthor versus Doom, Osborn versus Joker, Darkseid versus Thanos, Supergirl versus Cap. Oh, Supergirl we're saving for later. Boop, boop.
Yeah.
All right. 2 slots. What's speaking to you, Sal?
I mean, we gotta go. You gotta. If we're doing like wave 1, it's gotta be big.
Yeah.
But you can't then have wave 2 be the dregs. So you gotta save something.
Yeah.
So I think you gotta give people something they've never seen, but also you gotta go Batman. So Batman Iron Man has to be at least number 1.
Well, yeah, Batman. No, I mean, we're trying to fill those 2 slots. We've got 2 slots, and so we're picking which of our wild cards. Yeah. So are we filling that 2 slots with Fantastic Four versus Doom Patrol, Miles versus Nightwing, Hulk versus Doomsday, Doctor Strange versus Zatanna, Lex Luthor versus Doom, Osborn versus Joker, Darkseid versus Thanos?
We already have a Spider crossover, so I think we can save Miles.
We'll save Miles. I'm tempted to say, if we're talking about stuff we haven't seen before, I'm tempted to say team fight, villain fight.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Say you got to do villain fight in wave 1, villain fight wave 2.
Okay.
So, yeah. I think Gobby Joker probably would sell immediately.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because I think for me, I'm interested in Lex Luthor versus Doom, but I think you're right. Green Goblin versus Joker is a big one.
But Doom Luthor would be great because but that'll be a big one.
Yeah,
Doom, like,
Green Goblin versus Joker, and then you want to do we could do FF versus Doom Patrol, but we also Guardians. I'm wondering if there's a DC team.
I mean, you could do the Lanterns versus the Guardians. Thinking of DC teams that would be fun against the Guardians of the Galaxy.
They tried to
the Legion.
There's so many of them, though.
That's true.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
The Guardians of the Galaxy versus the Legion of Superheroes. Well, here's the thing. The modern Guardians could get some backup from the original Guardians of the Galaxy, which are from the future.
Yeah. Or you go you go traditional superhero with it, and the Guardians have to fight the crime syndicate.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm hung up on this because I know they tried to do a Omega Men book where they tried to position them as kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah,
and it didn't who cares about the Omega? I care about the Omega Men, but like who cares about the Omega Men?
Selling.
Okay, all right. I'm willing to turn my key on Guardians versus Legion of Superheroes, but just a final thing: do we want that over Fantastic Four versus Doom Patrol?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Fantastic Four Doom Patrol would be more fun.
You know what's funny is I didn't realize, for me that felt like a weird thing, but I think in the amalgam we combined the Fantastic We with the Challengers of the Known and with Doom Patrol got combined with X-Force, I think, or something.
Yes, it was X Patrol.
Yeah. All right, so do we want Guardians versus Legion, Fantastic Four versus Doom Patrol?
Let's do Guardians. That'll be more fun.
Yeah, I think Guardians are bigger now. Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll just put Guardians versus Legion of Superheroes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we're going to let 6 of these real quick. Sal and I are going to choose who wins. Let me just double check my numbers. Yeah, 6 we choose, 5 you guys are going to vote on. We're going to, if you recall from the 90s one, the low hanging fruit is what the audience got the vote on. So I'm going to right now, which one? I'm gonna put the Guardians versus Legion as the ones that get the vote on because that's the only way it gets to be fair. Let's see. That's 1, 2, 3. We'll choose this one. We'll let the audience choose this one. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm liking this. Sal. We got, it's coming together. Okay. So let's see how you feel about this. Here's what the audience is going to vote on. If you go to patreon.com/onlystupidanswers, Winter Soldier versus Red Hood, Guardians of the Galaxy versus Legion of Superheroes, Storm versus Swamp Thing, Captain Marvel, Cara Delevingne versus Captain Marvel versus Green Lantern, Harley Quinn versus Deadpool. The ones Sal and I are going to decide are Green Goblin versus Joker, Thor versus Wonder Woman, Flash versus Spider-Man, Superman versus Captain America, Batman versus Iron Man, and Wolverine versus Midnighter. I was going to have us pick this right now, but I feel like that might unfairly bias you guys on your voting.
That's true.
So we're going to hold on. We're going to hold on that. We're going to see how you guys vote. And then we're going to come back and say who we won. Real quick, Sal, we are running tight on time. You and I are quarterbacking this, but
that's right.
We need to pick a creative team.
Oh God.
We need to pick a creative team for this. This is the DC versus Marvel. This isn't what they're doing. We're bringing the DC versus Marvel, that 4-issue series, into 2025.
Yep.
Who is writing and who is doing art on this? Because the original one was Ron Mars. They basically tried to choose a person from each camp. It was Ron Mars and Peter David were the writers, and artists were Dan Jurgens and Claudio Castellini.
Yes.
I know if you did this about a decade ago,
if they were working together, like it's like Ron and like how Ron and Peter were working together on this one. So it's like 2 writers, one from Marvel, one from DC. I know exactly who you get, but who are you thinking?
No, well, I was thinking a decade ago it would have been Jeff Johns and Brian Bendis would have been the you.
Oh
yeah. But now we're in the now times.
Yeah, now it's Jeff Johns and Jonathan Hickman.
Jeff Johns. Wow. Yeah. Wait, it's Jeff, but I feel like Jeff Johns is incognito over at DC right now.
Still works at DC.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He's doing the JSA stuff. He's doing the
JSA stuff, and he's son of a bitch, no story structure.
Yeah.
The thing is, Hickman can hit you with the grandiosity.
Yeah.
But Johns knows when you need to cut to a chase scene.
Yeah.
Or a punch.
Here's what I was going to throw out there, but it was just one writer, one artist. But I think once I say them, you'll know why. It's Jonathan Hickman as writer, Jim Lee as art.
Well,
and so I feel like it's okay that they both represent, but Jim Lee's worked on both sides of the thing. But if you had artists,
but if you want to come out, you
good
get
point.
Dan Moore to draw it.
Ooh, baby. Okay, so we're definitely putting Dan Moore on there. Who's our Marvel artist? I'm trying to think of does Marvel even have an artist right now? There's Dan Moore's doing.
Man, well, you can't get Ribic because again that would never come out. But
isn't Chichetto on the Ultimate Spider-Man book?
Chichetto does the Ultimate Spider-Man. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Shoot, who? There was a great X-Men artist. I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, there's so many, and I just, if I'm being honest, I don't pick up as many Marvel books right now as I do DC.
Oh, Pepe
books.
Larraz. Somebody like Pepe Larraz or RB Silva.
Yeah. Good. I'm into that. I think that's good. We're going to wrap up. We did have some questions from Jake Hefner and Leonard Kim. Is there anything about the crossover that you think could have been done better? This is talking about the 90s DC versus Marvel. How would you have done it differently if you were in charge of the crossover? Well, we just did that part.
Yeah. But the older one, a lot. There would have been a lot of things. But like the thing is, it was all kind of like committee based. Although back then there was only one corporate overlord, and that was Warner Brothers. So like Marvel was able to play with it a little bit more. Plus, like the editors were friends and lived in the same building together. So like Marvel's and DC's. So like the camaraderie that was there, you couldn't replicate or improve upon.
Yeah.
But the voting thing was a deliberate invention to get people to go to comic book stores.
Yeah.
Because the voting ballots were there.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to go to your comic book store to, be involved. The whole invention was so that people would go to comic shops and buy books.
Yeah.
Promote their own books. So it's like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, creatively, I would have just picked different teams, especially in the 90s. It was you still could have gotten away with a lot more.
Yeah. Grayson in the chat says Dr. Fate versus Moon Knight would also be good. Cool. I love Moon Knight. I'd love to get Moon Knight in there. Dr. Fate's winning that fight, man. Dr. Fate's going to
crush Moon Knight, but like Moon Knight would be cool. I mean, like, yeah, Moon Knight's a tough one because he's so cool and there could be a lot of fun there. I mean, Moon Knight versus Batman.
Yeah, that's the thing is Moon Knight's one of a short list of Marvel characters that you could throw at Batman, Daredevil, Batman, Moon Knight, Batman.
I mean, honestly, you wanna blow people's minds. The Midnighter crossover is with Moon Knight.
Ooh. Wow. But we needed to give somebody to Wolverine.
We got to get somebody to Wolverine. And Wolverine didn't have like an analog until I think of something later, and I'll be like, that was more perfect shit.
Yeah. Well, if you guys can let us know in the comments who you'd be pairing up with. Leonard Kim says, do you think that we ever get a live-action Marvel DC crossover in our lifetimes? Like a live-action movie?
Yeah, I do. I think that it's more possible. I think that a movie was more possible than a comic book. And we'll see if that comic book ever comes out. But yeah, I do. I mean, like, I could very easily, I mean, with how tumultuous Warner Brothers is and has been, like I think we talked about this. I don't remember if it was you and I or if it was another show, but I pitched this idea of like there being a Marvel DC crossover movie where Disney invented their own DC universe. Like, it's not that like the DC universe from Warner Brothers fights the Disney Marvel universe. It's that Disney makes their own Justice League DC universe.
Yeah.
And has them fight Marvel. Like, it would basically be like in Secret Wars, where it's like they just show up.
Well, I mean, you already have for something like that with Marvel, they already have the Squadron Supreme, and that could have been a whole Avenger, like the new Avenger, like in this time post Endgame where the Avengers are disassembled. One of our Avengers movies are Sam Wilson, Shang-Chi, all these what would be viewed in the culture as like B tier guys. And the government's like, no, we've got our own Avengers replacement. They're the Squadron Supreme. It's like, that's an Avengers movie. You know what I mean?
They also really screwed up. They could have done Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
The real Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole other episode we can do. We'll probably do it once Thunderbolts is coming out. Cause it's like, you've got cause I know it's not the same, but it's like my big thing. I've been saying this on the show with Roxy, bring Sam Rockwell back, put him in the Mach 1 armor. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, so I've mentioned on the show a few times. A lot of people are speculating because you don't see Taskmaster a lot in the trailers. The Taskmaster is going to die. My hope is that that's secretly Zemo under the helmet.
That'd be great.
And that's the reason we're not seeing a lot of it, because it's actually, you thought it was Taskmaster from Black Widow. Actually, it's Zemo, because I really want Zemo in the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. It would be the only thing about the Thunderbolts that's in there, because basically this is Dark Avengers. I would love to see that. I would also be okay if they were to like bring in Iron Patriot, and that's Sam Rockwell.
Dude, I like the Mach 1 armor. I like that whole setup, but that makes the Iron. We haven't done anything with Iron Patriot. I also, speaking of the Dark Reign stuff, obviously they can't do all the Norman stuff because of that Spider-Man, but watching the new Daredevil show, they need to not waste Kingpin as mayor. It's like that should be in the Spider-Man movies. That should be like, you should make Wilson. They should have made Wilson like one of the big bads before Secret Wars. Like, we'll get to the Secret War big bad, but right now, Wilson Fisk being mayor of New York.
Spider-Man 4 needs to be a Daredevil Spider-Man fight the Kingpin.
Yeah, man. Because it's just Vincent D'Onofrio is really, really good in that role. Don't waste it. You can't use Norman, but you can use Kingpin. You can use Kingpin as much as you want. Anyway, oh my God. Well, it feels like some of the comments are this too. Not just the tumultuousness of Warner Brothers. Marvel's not doing, the MCU's not doing so hot right now. So
it's true.
It's more likely than it ever has been. So let's all shake hands. Let's all be friends. Why have all these studios to begin with? Let's all just be one studio. Sal, where can the kids find what you're working on?
You can swing by youtube.com/comicpop or Comic Pop Returns. Both channels feature the team that makes the stuff you like possible. So check it out. The
team that makes the dream happen. You can find me everywhere that matters. DJ Talks Trash. We're on Blue Sky now. Go say hi over there. Having a good time. You can follow the show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, including Blue Sky as well. And patreon.com/Only Stupid Answers and dangerboycomic.com. There's only a few days left to support my comic. Please go over there. You're going to love it. If you just watch an hour of a show about superhero comics, you're going to love Danger Boy and the Antagonist. Go support it, please, and thank you. And we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.